Every Sunday morning, there's a number of Baptist churches that are on a roster to come in and supply sandwiches and other snacky things for breakfast here down in Wooloomooloo. So what's happening at the moment is these lovely people are packing the bags that we'll give out to people, and usually about 60 or 70 people show up on a Sunday morning, and some of them are homeless, some of them are housed in the area or they're in boarding houses and things like that. And not only do they appreciate the food, but also it's a time just for them to come catch up with old mates, share stories and just hang around. And it's always a good scene here on a Sunday morning, and one that we're very grateful for the support of the churches that do come in on the Sunday mornings and that have been part of this ministry, the breakfast ministry, for well over 30 years.
Baptist Inner City Ministries began 40 years ago in 1983. Norm Nix, who was Director of Evangelism and Church Planting at the time, remembers Reg Pope's vision for inner city pastoral outreach.
At the time, I was a pastor at Gunnedah Baptist Church, and also I was a regional superintendent. And in that role, I was regularly coming to Sydney to meet with staff at Baptist headquarters. Reverend Reg Pope, was Director of Church Extension at the time, and it was his vision that a church should be started here at Wooloomooloo. So he sold that vision for a few years, and finally it was agreed by association that a church would be planted here in Wooloomooloo starting in November 1983. Reg retired 2 months later, and then it was part of my responsibility, because we were financing it, headquarters, that I should have some oversight. Well, obviously we had to choose a church planter, and I can't remember all the discussions that took place about that. Finally, we settled on George Capsis.
In 1983, I'd left Cogra Baptist Church to my first church, and I went to Regent's Park temporarily, and then Reg Pope, he said that they want to do something in the inner city. They were doing nothing, and so he thought I was the man for the job, and I thought, well, I'm the man for the job. And so in 1983, mid-year, I was appointed Pioneer Pastor Evangelist to the inner city. Didn't know what I was supposed to do, but I guessed I would have to make contacts and build something. I went to housing, and I said, look, I'm doing a wonderful job in the inner city, and they gave me use of this house in Wooloomooloo, right next door to St. Columbkille's Catholic Church, right next door. And I think the rent was $30 a month or something, it wasn't much. So I was away. Plunkett Public School in those days had just been done up, pride of the education people. And the principal was a man called Mr. Peter Hennessy, who happened to live at Miranda. And although I'm not a committed Christian or anything, most helpful. He gave me run of the school, gave me all the keys, and so I thought I'd start a church in the school, right in the school. So I was away, and then bit by bit made the contact. Sunday we'd have church, midweek we'd have other things, and so the work progressed. I went to Burton Street Tabernacle, and I got a few preaching things there, preached there a few times, and I convinced the church to start a coffee shop in their basement every Friday night. And we did. We decked out their basement. We called it the Lighthouse. And a team of us would go out to the streets Friday evening, bring people in. They'd have tea, coffee, a drink, toast, whatever. And I'd give them a gospel message. It's a wonderful ministry. Mind you, didn't last all that long. They got a bit scared of these people in their church. They got a bit upset. So I had to close the Lighthouse down. But Reg Pope said to me, he said, don't worry, he said, you're there to turn over new ground. Never mind Burton Street Tabernacle. So I turned over new ground. And eventually, I reckon I saw a miracle a week in that ministry. One of the highlights of a ministry like that is baptising people. I baptised some 40 people in Wooloomooloo Bay. And this is what happened. After church, we'd wander down, a couple of homeless people on the banks, wander past their lounge rooms, and I would baptise people in that Wooloomooloo Bay area, and it was pretty rough. There were rocks and oysters. Come out, would cut feet off them. I thought, well, that's good, that's the way of the cross. So to me, that was one of the good things. And the assembly We were the highlight of the assembly for at least 3 years. It was really wonderful. Blind Jimmy was blind. He used to tap his way through King's Cross and Wooloomooloo, and he was homeless, blind. So what I did, I got my first group home. I rented this big house, 7-bedroom, 3-story house, and the most sensible person made him the boss, and he ran the house. And we put these homeless people in that house. They paid a bit of rent. I was able to use that to pay the thing. And I was away. I looked after homeless people all of a sudden. And eventually the work became probably more stable and more professional than what I was able to do. I was a pioneer, and I was able to do that.
We've been doing the church here in the back shed for about 10 years now. The church has been working in a number of locations in Wooloomooloo over the years. But yeah, we run this very open at the edges kind of casual church service here, which many in the community appreciate, that they can just come along and get involved. My role here as a pastor is also closely runs alongside the work at Hope Street as well, so I'm in the community every day. There's always an opportunity to talk to people that are in the area, help them out with their issues, pray for them, visit them in hospital. I do all kinds of things around here. It's a very hands-on place to be a pastor here in Wooloomooloo, that's for sure.
To support the ministry of Ken Hall at Wooloomooloo Baptist Church, tax-deductible donations can be made online.